In this video, I will be showing you how to make a house out of clay. You will need a cup of water, your clay, a sticky note with your name on it, a plastic knife or a kebab skewer, and your house tracer. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to take our piece of clay and divide it into 4 pieces. To do that, you squeeze, squeeze, and twist. This should get you 2 roughly equal. It doesn't need to be perfect. If one looks a little bit smaller, just take a pinch from the big one and stick it on the small one. Now we gotta divide them again. So squeeze, squeeze, and twist. Squeeze, squeeze, and twist. Now you should have 4 roughly equal pieces. With these 4 pieces, we're going to roll them into spheres. So I just squeeze them between my hand like this and roll. It does not need to be a perfect sphere, just round. I'm going to do the same thing for all 4. Just roll until it's round. Okay. Now, I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to press this flat until it is just big enough to fit my tracer. The thicker this is, the better, because clay becomes breakable once it dries, so we want it to be as thick as it can be. So as soon as it's big enough to fit the tracer, I'm going to stop. And maybe just a little bit bigger. Okay, that's good. Now with the tracer on it, I'm going to use my plastic knife or kebab skewer, whatever you have, and I'm going to cut the clay. I always find that using 2 cuts works best, one going halfway through and the other one going the rest of the way. Take your extras, place them to the side. Now I have one house. I need 2 house shapes and 2 square shapes. I'm going to do the 2 house shapes first. If you notice, I'm doing this quickly between my hands on the palms, on the sole of my hand. That can quickly get the job done. Squishing it on the table or hitting it and being rough really just makes more noise than actual work getting done. Hitting it really hard on the table just makes more of a noise, where pushing it between your 2 hands is double the force on each side. Okay. And I'm stopping as soon as it's big enough. For this one to make a square, I don't need the point at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the 3 sides and do a line across the top. Remember, we want this to be as thick as possible. So I'm doing the 3 sides. And instead of doing the pointy top of the house, I'm just going to cut the top off to make a square. And I'm saving all of my extras because these are going to end up being the roof for tomorrow. This one might not end up being big enough, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my extras, add them in to make this a thicker sphere, roll it out again, and then I'm going to smush it flat. And now it is big enough for my tracer. Again, I'm just cutting the 3 sides. And then I'm going to cut the top off so that I have 2 squares. Now for the actual construction of the house. We're going to place, it's kind of like building a gingerbread house, where you have your house part and then you have your 2 side walls. You can put them together like this, where you have the side walls on the inside of the pointy house parts, or you can have the side walls on the outside. This will make your house wider, and it'll make it wider in this direction, but it'll make it shorter in this direction. So whichever way you prefer. I prefer to make it longer. But clay is not like Play-Doh. You can't just stick it together and it stays stuck when it dries. You have to do something called slipping and scoring. So to do that, wherever you want the clay to touch and stick, you have to do slipping and scoring. That is basically making tiny little scratch marks and adding water inside. So scoring is making tiny little scratch marks with, if you have a plastic knife that has these little teeth on it, you're in luck because you can just make little scratch marks. You want to like actually see it getting torn up. You want little scratch marks. And the piece you want to stick to it, you need to have scratch marks there as well. So we've done the scoring. Now we need to add slip. We're just gonna add water, and I literally just have a little droplet of water on my finger. And I add that droplet of water, and it goes into those little scratch marks like a ditch on the side of the road. The water just goes into it. Now I'm going to put the water in here. Now I'm going to put scratch marks to scratch marks and smush them, give them a wiggle, smush it together. What that does is it causes the clay to lock into place together. So when it dries, it fuses and dries as one thing. So I'm smushing it together, and then I'm also smoothing the outside to try and make this turn into one thing. Okay, so I have that one wall. Now I'm going to do this one. Scratch marks, scratch marks, water droplet, then I'm going to smush them together. And you really want to like smush and wiggle to make those scratch marks lock into place. Now I'm going to smooth it out. Now I just have one wall left. And you really want to be able to see those scratches. Gonna put the water in there. And then we have to push it all together. Smooth it out. Okay, and this is done. Before you turn this in, you should have a sticky note. Make sure you write your name on your sticky note. Now you're going to take your clay project, set it on top of the sticky note. Now I, Miss Roth, should have shown you where the bucket in your room is. It's a big bin, bucket, box, whatever, and it's clear, and that's where you're going to be putting your clay. Having your clay sitting on top of the sticky note with your name on it, and it's going to go in the bucket. I'm going to put a lid on top of it so that way it doesn't dry out, and tomorrow we're going to use our extra clay to make the lid. So take your extra clay, smush it all together, and you're going to keep it right next to your house, kind of like a garage. Make sure they stay together so you don't lose it. Okay,